it doesn't really matter whether they agreed or not because they broke the law and they knew they broke the law. I sent a report, state of Texas auditor. They haven't responded in over 3 years. That's very unfortunate. When they open a report and they give you a report number, especially if it ends in an 88, which just, I mean, they should know what that means, right? And they don't respond to an open report number in a certain amount of time, it registers as a default on the surety or the insurance connected to the department. Now, I've been following this default, 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 default going on in Texas, federal government. And this one seems to be a lot more important than I thought. See, when I was under detention for 10 days, and they tried to say that it was some sort of mental health observation, and I tried to say in my writ of habeas corpus that it was actually kidnapping. I said specifically that during a group session, I spoke out loud. I used Greek letters to discuss, to talk about, vocalize. What I understood at that time was a transaction that was going on, but trading between two companies. So there was a transfer between two financial companies. And I didn't even really understand exactly why, but I later traced that it literally happened. That there was literally an event going on at that time, sponsored by one of the financial institutions, and that there was an announcement during that time frame that actually correlated with what had happened on the 26th of March and then what had happened on the 28th of March when I spoke aloud. See, that event that had hooked up what it had on the 26th closed on the 28th, and then something else happened. Now, I could be incorrect. I just found this. I figured I'm going to do a little research. I'll get to the Special Air Service weapons page from the United Kingdom in a second. But what I'm more concerned about is this press release I found that is actually not a press release. What it is dated for, it is a product line from a company dated for March 28th of 2016. Now on March 28th of 2016, if I'm correct, I was getting kicked out of a shelter. I was being set up for a series of events that kept recurring. 1 year later, I've been kidnapped, and I'm discussing out loud in a group session where there were witnesses. I wrote it in a report. I submitted it to the auditor of the state of Texas when I was trying to get information about the billings on the medical records, on the insurance that they said was paying for those 10 days of alleged medical treatment. A year after the date of this, I contacted them. This is very important because there's also now, I just found a press release dated for June 26, 2020, which would have been my mother's 62nd birthday, saying that there is a Raytheon deal that had been approved in connection with Saudi Arabia. On that day, 127 members of Congress co sponsored a transportation bill. It also happens to be the 3 year anniversary of a change to the designation of disabled, what is it? Mentally retarded children to instead be identified as intellectually disabled. This is kind of the context for what I'm going to present next.